So let's get into some recent headlines. This is something I actually pulled for last week. Didn't get to it because I just yapped about the schedule, and look at that, I did it again. But there's been some speculation about the new college football playoff format, and the Big Ten commissioner and the SEC commissioner, that is Tony Petitti for the Big Ten and Greg Sankey for the SEC, they've kind of been leading these talks in meetings recently about changing the seeding in the college football playoff, and also some expansion. So let's talk about seeding first. That kind of came out last week. They want to make it so that the top 4 conference winners no longer automatically get those valuable top 4 spots where you get a first round bye, right? And I agree with that, actually. I agree with that. My main reasoning is in year one, I think that was the biggest issue college football playoff had, is that all the top 4 teams not only lost their games, but were also underdogs heading into those games. It's not like there was some crazy upset or anything. Every single lower team was favored in those bowl games against the 1 through 4. And obviously you had, Georgia was kind of hindered by the Carson Beck injury. So it's not super fair, because Georgia and Oregon absolutely deserve the 1 and 2, right? Boise State, Arizona State are fantastic teams. Should Boise State have been seated ahead of Penn State after how we saw them play? I don't think so. I think we can give guaranteed spots to top 5 conference winners, I would say, which I think they're already doing that, and then just adding in that the top 4 of those get the top 4 seeds. I think winning your conference, not every conference like March Madness is, but winning your conference in one best group of 5 team, and then take the Big 12, ACC, Big 10, SEC automatic qualifiers for winning those conferences, right? But I think taking that, not giving you a seed based off whether you're the conference winner or not, doesn't necessarily take away from conference play, right? They do that in the NFL too, right? Where the 4 division winners automatically get the top 4 seeds. We see that in the NFL. We've seen that for years. I like that because it adds value to your division opponents. But I don't think you need that in college football when you're playing 8 of your 12 games, or in Illinois in the Big Ten's case, 9 of your 12 games are being played against your conference. The value of your conference is already there when you're playing that many games against them. In the NFL, you're playing 6 of your 17 games against your division. Still certainly a good chunk of the schedule, but not 3/4 of it like it is in the Big Ten. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that takes away from that. And also the era of super conferences, I think, is not going in a great direction. I really don't like the era of super conferences just in general. It's certainly interesting. It makes for some good matchups we don't normally see. But I think that's kind of ruined this plan, because this 12-team playoff was in development for years. This has been development before we saw these West Coast Big Ten teams, before we saw West Coast ACC teams, before we saw conferences stretching the entire country. And so I think, who knows in 10 years if there will even be 4 to 5 conferences, Based on how these talks are going, the Big Ten and the SEC are just bullying these other conferences, and rightfully so. They have a lot of power. Those 2 conferences hold the cards. It really could just be Big Ten, SEC become like conferences like we see in professional sports, So yeah, overall, I do support reseeding. And I also think reseeding, along with no longer having home games in the first round, I think home games are really exciting. However, I don't see, all those teams got crushed. I think the closest game was Indiana lost by 14 points, and they were down by more than that earlier in the game. There is no bigger home field advantage than in college football. There's no question about that, right? I don't think anyone's going to debate me on that. That is the best, loudest atmosphere in sports. And it's really tough to win as a road team, especially in a playoff atmosphere. You know, I think that's the reason why all 4 of those visiting teams got crushed in the opening round. I would love to see the whole college football playoff be neutral site games, in addition to reseeding, right? So that if we went back and used the new reseeding rules to last year's college football playoff, it doesn't change what teams made the college football playoff, right? It's just changing who's playing who, giving some teams like Texas, teams who just, you know, because they're in a better conference, can't get that bye. I don't think that's really fair. I think we should reward teams for tougher competition. And then real quick, they also talked about expansion. Also, Big Ten SEC commissioners talking about expansion with college football playoff as early as 2026. So for sure this year we're getting another 12-team playoff, and it could be over after 2 years. But okay, real quick, they want to expand a 14 to 16 team playoff, and would give automatic bids, 4 automatic bids to both the Big Ten and the SEC. Shocking that the Big Ten and SEC commissioners would suggest getting 4 automatic bids in a 14 to 16. I like 16 a little better, I think. Playoff, right? And then the ACC and Big 12 would each get 2. Group of 5 conferences would get 1, like just the best group of 5 conference team. And then there would be 1 if it was 14 teams, or 3 if there's 16 teams, automatic bids. I don't agree with that. I think they should let the 12-team college football playoff have its time like it did, like the 4-team college playoff did. Sorry, it got a nice decade. We got used to the 4-team college football playoff, and I love the 12-team college football playoff. I think a 16-team college football playoff is very realistic, but I think they should give it some time. And I don't think they should expand beyond 16 teams, because if we expand all the way to 16 teams just 2 years after expanding to 12, you're just always going to get cries for more expansion, right? We've seen that in March Madness. People are trying to suggest expanding March Madness next year to 76 teams. We already have 68 teams, and people are still talking about expansion, right? But it's different in football. I think in football, you got some teams playing 4 postseason games. I mean, that's a third of your schedule that you're adding on extra to your season, where most people are just playing in 1 bowl game, or some teams nothing. So those are my thoughts. I think the expansion should hold off. I love the reseeding.